The floodwaters came without mercy at 3 a.m., swallowing my home of 30 years in minutes. I escaped with only my wallet and the clothes on my back. When I called my daughter Amanda, sobbing through my explanation, her response froze my heart. "Dad, I really can't deal with this right now. The twins have colic, Jason's parents are visiting, and we don't have space. Just sleep in your car a little longer. I'm busy." The phone went silent. At 67, I found myself homeless, betrayed by my only child. I always thought I had built a decent life. After teaching high school mathematics in Millfield, Ohio for over 4 decades, retirement should have been my golden years. My modest 3-bedroom ranch wasn't fancy, but it was paid for, comfortable, and filled with memories of Sarah, my wife who passed from cancer 7 years ago. Every corner of that house told our story, from the height marks on the kitchen doorframe tracking Amanda's growth to the small garden Sarah had lovingly tended. The neighbors knew me, waved when I collected my morning paper, and occasionally brought over casseroles just because. Teaching had never made me wealthy, but I'd been prudent. My pension provided enough for a simple life, occasional fishing trips to Lake Erie with my buddy Frank, and small gifts for Amanda's twins when holidays rolled around. I had always believed that family would be there when it mattered most. After all, hadn't I been there for Amanda her entire life? When she wanted to attend Cornell University instead of the state college where I could have gotten faculty discount, I took out a second mortgage. When she needed help with the down payment on her first condo in Columbus, I liquidated some of my retirement funds. Even her lavish wedding to Jason 4 years ago had been partially funded by selling my beloved fishing boat. I never once complained or made her feel guilty about it. That's what fathers do. But something shifted after she married Jason. The corporate lawyer, with perfect teeth and country club memberships, seemed to view me as an embarrassment. Our weekly phone calls dwindled to monthly, then to holiday obligations. Invitations to visit became rarer as their home in the upscale Worthington neighborhood filled with modern furniture and art pieces that probably cost more than my annual pension. "Dad, you really should get some new clothes before coming over," Amanda had suggested during our last visit. Jason's firm partners might stop by. I noticed how she cringed when I mentioned my teaching career at dinner with Jason's colleagues. The man I'd raised my little girl to be couldn't have been more different than the woman who now sat across from me, checking her phone as I tried to tell stories about her childhood. Still, I persisted. I sent thoughtful cards for their anniversaries. I remembered Jason's birthday with gift cards to that fancy steakhouse he liked. I FaceTimed to read bedtime stories to the twins, even when they were too young to understand. Family was family, after all. The weather forecasts had been mentioning the possibility of flooding for days. Our town had seen high water before, but nothing catastrophic in the 40-plus years I'd lived there. Nevertheless, I took precautions, moving photo albums to higher shelves, checking that my insurance was current, and placing sandbags by the doors as the rain continued relentlessly. The night it happened, I had gone to bed listening to the steady drumming on the roof, a sound that had always lulled me to sleep. The emergency alert on my phone jerked me awake at 2:15 in the morning. Flash flood warning. Seek higher ground immediately. I barely had time to pull on pants and grab my wallet when I heard what sounded like a freight train. Looking out the window, I saw a wall of water surging down our street, carrying debris, cars, and pieces of my neighbors' homes. By the time I reached my front door, water was already seeping underneath it. The next few minutes were pure adrenaline. I waded through rapidly rising water to my car, grateful it was parked on the slight incline of my driveway. As I backed out, I watched in horror as the water engulfed my porch, then burst through my front windows. The home where I had raised my daughter, loved my wife, and planned to live out my days was disappearing before my eyes. I managed to drive to the community center on higher ground, where shell-shocked neighbors gathered in pajamas and whatever they had managed to grab. We huddled together, watching news reports, as nearly a quarter of our town was swallowed by the unexpected breach of the reservoir upstream. When dawn broke, revealing the full devastation, my first thought was Amanda. Surely now she would step up, offer her spare room, help her father through this crisis. With shaking hands, I called her. It was early, but this was an emergency. After explaining through tears what had happened, her response stunned me into silence. "Dad, I really can't deal with this right now. The twins have colic, Jason's parents are visiting, and we don't have space. Just sleep in your car a little longer. I'm busy." The dismissal in her tone felt like a physical blow. But what came next was even worse. I received a call from my insurance agent later that day. Reading through the fine print of my policy, he delivered the devastating news. My homeowner's policy had a flood exclusion clause. The policy renewal 4 months ago had come with changes I apparently hadn't noticed among the pages of legalese. Everything I owned, everything I had worked for, was gone, with no financial recourse. At 67 years old, I was starting over with nothing but my car and the clothes on my back. The first night sleeping in my Buick LeSabre, I couldn't process what was happening. Me, Braxton Miller, respected educator who had shaped young minds for 42 years, curled up in the reclined driver's seat of a 12-year-old sedan in the Walmart parking lot. I kept waiting to wake up from this nightmare. By the third night, the reality had set in. My back ached constantly. The humidity inside the car was unbearable in the June heat. I used the public restroom at the gas station to wash up as best I could, splashing water under my armpits and trying to keep my one set of clothes from smelling too offensive. I rationed my meager savings, buying the cheapest fast food items and filling my water bottle wherever I could. The Red Cross had set up an emergency shelter in the high school gymnasium, but it was overcrowded, noisy, and lacked privacy. After one sleepless night there, listening to crying children and arguing adults, I decided I preferred my car. At least there I maintained some dignity. Dignity, however, was becoming an increasingly rare commodity. Each morning, I would wake before dawn, embarrassed that someone might see a senior citizen emerging from his car, stiff and disheveled. I spent my days at the public library, using their computers to navigate the labyrinthine websites of FEMA and disaster assistance programs. The paperwork was overwhelming, the waiting periods interminable, and the assistance amounts woefully inadequate compared to what I had lost. "Your application is pending review," became the refrain I heard repeatedly when calling for updates. "Please allow 6 to 8 weeks for processing." I didn't have 6 to 8 weeks. My small checking account was dwindling rapidly. Even with the emergency stipend from the Red Cross, I could see the mathematical reality approaching. Soon I would have nothing. I reached out to former colleagues, people I had worked alongside for decades. Most expressed sympathy, offered prayers, maybe bought me lunch. But when the conversation edged toward needing a place to stay, eyes would lower, excuses would materialize. "We've got Susan's mother living with us already. The spare room is being renovated. Our homeowners association has strict rules about guests." I understood. Nobody plans to take in a homeless senior citizen indefinitely. Still, each gentle rejection stung, reminding me how quickly one can go from respected community member to burden. Throughout this time, Amanda's texts remained perfunctory and distant. "Hanging in there, Dad? Have you checked with the senior services office? Maybe look into those subsidized apartments for the elderly?" Each message arrived without a phone call, without genuine concern, without an invitation to the guest room I knew they had. I remembered helping them move into their 4-bedroom house just 2 years earlier, carrying boxes into the room Amanda had enthusiastically described as perfect for when you come visit, Dad. After a week of increasingly desperate nights in my car, I made a decision. Without warning, I drove the 90 minutes to Amanda and Jason's suburban Columbus neighborhood. Surely, seeing me in person, understanding my dire situation firsthand, would awaken her dormant compassion. Their neighborhood intimidated me from the moment I turned onto their street. Immaculate lawns, luxury vehicles in driveways, not a basketball hoop or tricycle out of place. I parked my now filthy Buick at the curb, grimacing at how out of place it looked. How out of place I looked with my wrinkled shirt and unshaven face. Amanda's expression when she opened the door said everything. Not surprise, not concern, but embarrassment and irritation. "Dad, you should have called first." I tried calling. "You didn't pick up," I said quietly. She glanced nervously toward the neighbors' homes. "We have Jason's work colleagues coming for dinner in an hour. This really isn't a good time." "Amanda, I've been sleeping in my car for a week. I've lost everything. I need help." Jason appeared behind her, his perpetually crisp button-down looking particularly unwrinkled compared to my rumpled state. "Braxton," he said, using my first name as he always did, never Dad or even Mr. Miller. "This is a difficult situation, but you have to understand our position. We have the twins to consider, our social obligations, my partnership track at the firm." "I raised her," I said, my voice breaking. "I was there for every scraped knee, every school play, every heartbreak. I put her through Cornell. And now I'm asking for a couch to sleep on until I can figure things out." "Have you looked into the men's shelter downtown?" Jason suggested, as if recommending a restaurant. "I hear they have excellent resources for people in your situation." People in my situation. As if homelessness were a character flaw, rather than a tragedy. I stood there on their porch. The father who had once carried his daughter on his shoulders, now deemed unworthy of even temporary sanctuary in her home. Something broke inside me at that moment. A fundamental trust I had always maintained in the natural order of things, in the bonds between parent and child. As I turned to leave, I overheard Amanda speaking to their neighbor, who had approached with curious eyes. "My dad's becoming a bit unstable since Mom died. We're trying to get him into assisted living, but you know how stubborn they can get at that age." The lie, so casually delivered, stunned me more than any physical blow ever could. In her narrative, I wasn't a flood victim deserving of compassion. I was an embarrassing elderly parent whose facilities were failing. That night, parked behind a closed service station, I couldn't sleep despite my exhaustion. I opened Facebook on my phone, something I rarely did. There, displayed prominently in Amanda's feed, were photos of their home renovation project. So excited to finally convert the guest room into the home theater we've always wanted. Jason's building a custom entertainment center this weekend. The guest room. The room that supposedly didn't exist when her father needed a place to sleep. I stared at the photos showing the spare bed already removed, replaced by delivery boxes containing leather recliners and a projector system that probably cost more than 6 months of my pension. As rain began to patter against my windshield, I faced the crushing truth. My only child had not only abandoned me in my darkest hour, but had lied about her ability to help. Whatever I was going to do, whatever path forward I might find, it would not include the daughter I had sacrificed everything for. By my 3rd week of homelessness, I had established a grim routine. I rotated between different parking lots to avoid attention. I showered at the YMCA every other day, using a temporary emergency membership provided to flood victims. I ate one meal daily, usually at the community kitchen, saving my dwindling funds for gas and occasional laundromat visits. The one possession I had managed to grab besides my wallet was Sarah's engagement ring. I had inexplicably shoved it into my pocket that night, perhaps some survival instinct knowing it might be valuable. I had removed it from her finger before her burial, unable to part with this symbol of our love. Now, I sat in my car, turning the modest diamond in my fingers, contemplating the unthinkable. It's just a thing, I told myself. Sarah would want me to survive. Downtown Millfield had a small jewelry shop that had somehow escaped the worst of the flooding. The bell tinkled cheerfully as I entered, a sound at odds with my heavy heart. The woman behind the counter looked to be in her 50s, with kind eyes and a practical bob of silver-streaked brown hair. "How can I help you today?" she asked. I placed the ring on the counter. "I need to know what this is worth." She picked it up, examining it with practiced eyes, then looked at me more carefully. "May I ask why you're selling?" Something in her tone, free of judgment but full of genuine interest, broke through my practiced stoicism. "I lost my home in the flood. I'm living in my car. I'm running out of options." She nodded, still studying the ring. "I'm Eleanor Thompson. You're one of the Riverside victims, aren't you? What's your name?" "Braxton Miller. I taught mathematics at Millfield High for 42 years. Her face brightened with recognition. "Mr. Miller, you taught my daughter Jess, class of 2006. She's an engineer now. Always says her love of math came from your class." For a moment, I felt a flash of my old self, the teacher who had made a difference. Then reality crashed back. "About the ring," I prompted gently. Eleanor handed it back to me. "I'd estimate about $1,200 retail. I could offer you $800, which is fair for resale. $800. It would keep me going another month, maybe 2 if I was careful. But," she continued, "I don't think you should sell it yet." I blinked in surprise. "I don't have many alternatives." "Actually, you might." She came around the counter and flipped the OPEN sign to closed. "I'm on the flood relief committee. We're overwhelmed with cases, but I might have a solution for you specifically. Can I buy you a cup of coffee?" 20 minutes later, we sat in the small cafe next door, and I found myself telling Eleanor my whole story, including Amanda's betrayal. She listened without interruption, occasionally nodding with understanding. "My brother Walter owns several properties in town," she explained when I finished. "One of his tenants just moved out of a garage apartment. It's nothing fancy, but it's clean and private. He was going to renovate before renting it again, but I think he'd consider letting you stay there in the meantime, especially if you're handy at all." "I can fix most things," I said, hope cautiously rising. "I maintained my own home for years." "Perfect. Walter is always complaining about finding reliable people for small repairs. Let me call him." The garage apartment behind a larger Victorian home wasn't much, just a studio with a kitchenette and bathroom, but after weeks in my car, it felt like the Ritz-Carlton. Walter, a tall, lean man in his 70s with a no-nonsense demeanor, showed me around that same afternoon. Eleanor says you're good with your hands, he said, pointing out a leaky faucet and some loose cabinet hinges. Fix what you can. We'll deduct it from the rent. What is the rent? I asked nervously. Let's call it $300 a month for now. Below market, but I hate having vacancies. It was still a stretch with my limited funds, but it was shelter, a real bed, a shower of my own. I nearly wept with gratitude. Over the next 2 weeks, I not only fixed the items Walter had pointed out but noticed and repaired several other issues: a sticking door, a wobbly ceiling fan, some cracked caulking around the bathtub. I left notes detailing the work I'd done, partly to justify my reduced rent, partly because the teacher in me couldn't help documenting things. Walter stopped by to inspect my repairs, nodding with approval at each one. You do good work, Braxton. Clean. Thorough. Not many people take that kind of pride anymore. I believe anything worth doing is worth doing right, I said simply. He studied me for a moment. I have another property that needs a lot more attention than this one. Would you be interested in looking at it with me tomorrow? The next day, Walter drove us across town to a property that took my breath away, though not in its current condition. It was a sprawling Victorian home on 3 acres, with a wraparound porch, turret, and countless architectural details now obscured by neglect. Paint peeled from the ornate trim, several porch boards had rotted through, and the once magnificent gardens were overgrown jungles. Bank foreclosure, Walter explained as we walked the perimeter. I got it for a song, but it needs everything. Plumbing, electrical, cosmetic work, you name it. I planned to flip it, but then this happened. He rolled up his sleeve to reveal a medical port in his arm. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. Doctors give me 6 months, maybe a year with treatment. He stated this without self-pity, as matter-of-factly as he might discuss the weather. I don't have time for a major renovation now. I'm sorry, I said, unsure how else to respond. Don't be. I've had 74 good years, but I hate leaving projects unfinished. He turned to face me directly. I have a proposition for you, Braxton. You seem like a man who appreciates beauty and craftsmanship. What would you say to living here, rent-free, while you help restore this place? I'm not a professional contractor, I cautioned. No, but you're careful, detail-oriented, and honest. I can hire specialists for the complex systems. I need someone to oversee the day-to-day work, someone who'll care about this place like I would. I looked up at the grand old house, seeing past its current shabbiness to the magnificence it once possessed, could possess again. There's more, Walter continued. I don't have family I'm close to. My kids are like your Amanda, only interested in what they can get from me. I've set up a life estate for this property. Do you know what that is? I shook my head. It means if you help me restore this house, you can live in it for the rest of your life, payment-free. After you pass, it would go to the Historical Society. You'd have security, a purpose, and a home that can't be taken from you. I stood speechless, unable to process what he was offering. It seemed too good to be true, the kind of miracle I had stopped believing in. Why me? I finally managed to ask. You barely know me. Walter's expression softened slightly. Because I know more than you think, Braxton Miller. After Eleanor told me about you, I did some checking. 42 years teaching our community's children. Volunteer math tutor at the library. Meals on Wheels driver until last year. Not a single person had a bad word to say about you. He paused, then added more quietly. And I know what it's like to have children who see you as nothing more than a resource to be exploited. I wouldn't wish that pain on anyone. As we stood there in the shadow of the dilapidated mansion that might become my future, Walter dropped one final bombshell. There's something else you should know, he said, his voice hardening. I had my attorney look into your daughter and son-in-law's finances. I have connections in banking from my former career. My heart sank. What did you find? They've been systematically draining your accounts for years. Those investment documents Jason had you sign last Christmas, they gave him power to redirect your pension supplements into accounts you can't access. The flood insurance rider he claimed to add to your homeowner's policy? Never happened, though he collected the premium from you. The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. That's not possible. Amanda wouldn't. Amanda might not understand the full extent, but she's benefited from it. Those luxury vacations, the twins' exclusive preschool, their home renovations, all funded partly by your systematically siphoned resources. As the magnitude of the betrayal washed over me, I realized that losing my home to the flood was only the most visible of my losses. The daughter I thought I knew had been lost to me long before the waters came. The first week in the Victorian mansion was overwhelming. Despite its dilapidated state, the home had a grandeur that made me feel like an imposter. I set up a modest camp in what must have once been a servant's quarters off the kitchen, the only room with functioning plumbing and electricity. "You sure this isn't some elaborate scam?" I asked Walter. When he delivered a truck full of basic tools and supplies, the arrangement still felt too miraculous to trust. Walter laughed, a dry sound rarely heard. "At my age, with my diagnosis, what would be the point? I don't have time for elaborate schemes." Slowly, I began to believe in my good fortune, throwing myself into the restoration with the same methodical approach I'd once applied to teaching complex equations. I started with a thorough assessment, room by room, system by system, creating a prioritized list of repairs that would make the house livable, then functional, then beautiful again. Walter visited almost daily at first, bringing contractors for the specialized work, while teaching me what he knew about historical restoration. Despite his gruff exterior, he proved to be an excellent mentor, patient with my mistakes, and generous with his knowledge. "Sand with the grain," he'd demonstrate, guiding my hand on the ornate banister. "Feel the wood telling you which way it wants to be treated." I discovered an unexpected talent for fine carpentry. The precision required appealed to my mathematical mind, and the tangible results provided immediate satisfaction that teaching had sometimes lacked. The first time I successfully replicated an intricate piece of gingerbread trim for the porch, Walter nodded with what I'd come to recognize as his highest form of praise. "Not bad for a math teacher," he said with the ghost of a smile. As weeks passed, my body grew stronger despite my age, muscles developing from constant physical work. My mind felt clearer too, focused on practical problems, rather than ruminating on betrayal. I slept deeply each night, exhausted in the most satisfying way. Occasionally, thoughts of Amanda would intrude. I had sent her a text shortly after moving in with Walter, a brief message explaining I'd found housing and was doing better. Her response had been predictably self-centered. "Great news, Dad. See? Everything works out. We should try to get together for the holidays if things settle down with the twins' activities." I didn't bother responding. The holidays were 6 months away, and her casual dismissal of my trauma still stung. Instead, I channeled my hurt into restoration, bringing beauty back to something abandoned and undervalued. Walter and I fell into a comfortable routine. Mornings began with coffee on the partially restored porch, reviewing the day's goals. Afternoons often found us working side by side when his strength permitted. Evenings sometimes stretched into conversations over simple meals, during which I learned more about his life and his own family disappointments. "My son Troy hasn't spoken to me in 15 years, he confided one night. "Not since I refused to fund his third failed business venture. My daughter Marlene calls twice yearly, on my birthday and Christmas, always with a financial crisis only I can solve." "How do you deal with it?" I asked. "The disappointment?" He considered this as he sipped his bourbon. "I stopped expecting anything. Expectations are just premeditated resentments. Now I focus on what I can control, what I can build or fix with my own 2 hands." It was a philosophy I began to adopt myself, letting go of the image I'd maintained of Amanda as the loving daughter I'd raised. Instead, I accepted the reality of who she had become, and found peace in releasing expectations. The work on the house progressed steadily. By the end of the 2nd month, the roof had been professionally replaced, the electrical system updated, and the plumbing restored throughout. I had personally refinished the hardwood floors in the main living areas, bringing the century-old oak back to a warm, honeyed glow. Walter's condition worsened visibly during the 3rd month. His visits became less frequent, his once tall frame increasingly stooped. Still, he insisted on seeing each completed project, his eyes lighting up with satisfaction at the house's transformation. "You have an eye for this," he told me, as I showed him the restored fireplace mantel, its intricate carvings freed from decades of paint. "You understand that preservation isn't about freezing time, but about honoring intention." I found myself sharing his vision for the house, suggesting historically appropriate modifications that would make it more livable while respecting its character. We spent hours discussing paint colors, light fixtures, and garden layouts, 2 old men planning a future that one of us wouldn't see. One rainy afternoon, as we reviewed fabric samples for the library curtains, Walter suddenly clutched his side, his face contorting in pain. "Hospital," he gasped, his normally ruddy complexion ashen. The next 12 hours were a blur of emergency rooms, grim-faced doctors, and forms to sign as Walter's medical proxy, a responsibility he had assigned me just weeks earlier. By morning, he was stabilized but significantly weaker, the cancer having spread to his liver. 6 weeks, maybe less, the oncologist told us privately. "It's time to consider hospice care." Walter dismissed this suggestion with a wave. I'm dying in my own bed, not some facility with fluorescent lighting and bad food. You could move into the mansion, I offered. I've made the master suite comfortable. He shook his head. Too many stairs. My condo suits me fine. Besides, someone needs to keep working on the house. The day before his discharge, as Walter drifted in and out of consciousness, he suddenly gripped my hand with surprising strength. Need to tell you something, he said, his voice barely audible. About your daughter. It's all right, I said, assuming he was confused. Rest now. No. His eyes cleared momentarily. You need to know. I investigated them because something felt wrong. Jason worked briefly for a bank that handled my commercial loans. He was fired for ethical violations, though they kept it quiet. When Eleanor mentioned his name, I recognized it. I leaned closer, my heart racing. What are you saying? They've been planning this for years, Braxton. The insurance policy that mysteriously didn't cover floods? Jason deliberately changed it after convincing you to sign paperwork you didn't read. The investment account that was supposed to supplement your pension? He's been skimming from it since he took over your financial planning. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Not just neglect or emotional abandonment, but calculated financial exploitation by my own family. How could they do this? I whispered. Walter's eyes drifted closed again, his energy spent. Same reason my kids did. They stopped seeing a parent and started seeing a resource. But you're smarter than I was. You got out before they took everything. As I sat beside his hospital bed, watching his labored breathing, I realized that Walter's seemingly miraculous offer hadn't been random chance. He had recognized in me a mirror of his own experience, and had decided to break the cycle of exploitation, for both our sakes. The house that was becoming my home wasn't just a building being restored, it was a life being reclaimed from those who had tried to diminish it. And with that understanding came a resolve that hardened in me like the oak beams that had supported the Victorian mansion through a century of storms. Walter passed away peacefully in his sleep 6 weeks later, just as the doctors had predicted. The small funeral was attended primarily by business associates and a few tenants, including myself. His children made brief appearances, Troy flying in and out the same day, Marlene staying just long enough to speak with the attorney about the will. I stood alone by the gravesite long after the others had departed, reflecting on how this near stranger had changed the course of my final years. Thank you, I whispered to the fresh mound of earth. I'll make it beautiful, I promise. 3 days later, Walter's attorney, Harold Blackman, invited me to his office for the official reading of the will. I sat uncomfortably in the leather chair, feeling out of place among the legal trappings. Walter's instructions were quite specific, Harold explained, adjusting his reading glasses. The Victorian property at 1223 Willow Lane is to be placed in a life estate for Braxton Miller, with all associated expenses covered by the Walter Jennings Trust. Upon Mr. Miller's death, the property will transfer to the Millfield Historical Preservation Society. He slid a document across the desk. This grants you full rights to live in and use the property for your lifetime. The trust will pay property taxes, insurance, and provide a monthly stipend of $2,000 for maintenance and living expenses. I stared at the paper, still unable to fully comprehend my change in fortune. And his children agreed to this? Harold permitted himself a small smile. They had no choice. Walter revised his will shortly after your arrangement began, and he was of sound mind. They each received other properties and investments. The Victorian was never mentioned in previous versions of his will, so they had no expectation of receiving it. As I signed the necessary paperwork, a weight lifted from my shoulders. For the first time since the flood, I had security, purpose, and a home that could not be taken from me. The following months were the most fulfilling I had experienced since retirement. I threw myself into completing Walter's vision for the house, working with specialized contractors for the major renovations while handling the finer details myself. The monthly stipend allowed me to purchase quality materials and even hire occasional help for the larger projects. By early fall, the transformation was remarkable. The exterior gleamed with fresh paint in the historically accurate colors Walter and I had selected. The gardens had been restored to their original formal design, and the interior spaces were gradually being furnished with period-appropriate pieces I discovered at estate sales and auctions. I found joy in creating a home that honored both its past and its future. Each restored room became a testament to craftsmanship and care, values that had guided my teaching career and now shaped my unexpected second act as a preservationist. It was November when I received the first call from Amanda in nearly 6 months. "Dad, I've been trying to reach you." Her voice held an unfamiliar warmth, Your old number wasn't working. I changed providers, I said neutrally, not mentioning that I had done so deliberately, giving the new number only to Eleanor and a few other trusted friends. How are you doing? We've been so worried. The "we" caught my attention. Not once during my homeless period had Jason expressed concern about my welfare. I'm fine, I replied. Settled into a new place. That's wonderful. Is it one of those senior apartments? I know those can be really nice nowadays. Something like that, I said, unwilling to share details. Well, I have amazing news. Her voice rose with excitement. I'm pregnant. You're going to be a grandfather again. Despite everything, my heart softened slightly. Another grandchild. Another chance to be the loving grandparent I had never been allowed to be with the twins. Congratulations, I said, meaning it. When are you due? April. And it's a girl this time. Jason is thrilled, of course, but a bit overwhelmed at the thought of 3 children. Our house already feels so cramped with the twins things everywhere. There it was, the subtle shift from sharing news to setting up an agenda. I recognized the pattern from years of similar conversations. I'm sure you'll manage, I said, deliberately not offering solutions. A week later, Amanda called again. Dad, we're coming to Millfield this weekend to check on some things at your old property. The bank finally cleared it for demolition. Could we stop by to see your new place? The twins miss their grandpa. The twins who had barely been allowed to know me, who wouldn't recognize me if we passed on the street. Still, family was family. Saturday afternoon would work, I said, providing the address before I could reconsider. I spent Friday cleaning and preparing, uncertain how to feel about the impending visit. Part of me hoped for reconciliation, for Amanda to express genuine remorse for her abandonment. Another part remained wary, Walter's revelations about financial exploitation still fresh in my mind. When their luxury SUV pulled into my circular driveway on Saturday, I watched from the bay window as all 4 of them emerged. Amanda's eyes widened as she took in the magnificent Victorian, clearly confused. Jason's expression shifted from bewilderment to rapid calculation as he assessed the property's likely value. I opened the front door before they reached it. Welcome, I said simply. Dad? Amanda stood frozen on the walkway. You live here? I thought you said you were in a senior apartment. I said something like that. This is my home now. Jason recovered first, extending his hand with newfound warmth. Braxton, this is quite impressive. You've been holding out on us. I shook his hand briefly, then turned my attention to the twins, now 4 years old, and regarding me with shy curiosity. Hello, Emma. Hello, Ethan. Would you like to see the garden? There's a small pond with goldfish. The tour of the main floor was conducted primarily for the children's benefit, though I noted Jason inspecting details with the eye of someone appraising value rather than appreciating craftsmanship. Amanda repeatedly expressed amazement. Her questions focused on how I had acquired such a property. A friend left me a life estate, I explained minimally. I've been restoring it for the past 6 months. Life estate? Jason's interest sharpened visibly. So you don't actually own it? I have the right to live here for the remainder of my life, with all expenses covered. After I'm gone, it goes to the Historical Society. His disappointment was almost comically transparent. Amanda, however, seemed genuinely happy for me, though perhaps more because it relieved her of any responsibility than from true filial joy. As we sat having coffee in the newly renovated sunroom, the twins playing with toys I had thoughtfully purchased for their visit, Amanda broached what was clearly the real purpose of their appearance. Dad, seeing this amazing place has given Jason and me an idea. We've been so concerned about you being alone, especially as you get older. Jason nodded earnestly. Family should stick together. The hypocrisy was breathtaking, but I remained silent, letting them continue. With the new baby coming, we've been talking about needing more space, Amanda explained. Our current house just won't work with 3 children. The market in Columbus is incredibly tight right now, Jason added. Quality properties are hard to find. I saw where this was heading but maintained a neutral expression. That must be challenging for you. Amanda leaned forward, her face alight with what she clearly thought was a brilliant solution. We were thinking, this place is so big for just one person. You must rattle around in here, all by yourself. I manage, I said dryly. But imagine having family around. The twins could visit whenever you wanted. You could be part of the new baby's daily life. Her voice grew more animated. There's so much room here. We could take the upstairs. You could have the main floor, all to yourself. Except when the children want to play, of course, Jason qualified. Kids need space to run around. I sipped my coffee thoughtfully. So, you're suggesting moving in here with me? It would be perfect, Amanda exclaimed. You wouldn't be alone anymore. We'd have the space we need, and we could help take care of you as you get older. The conversation continued with them, outlining their vision of multi-generational living, conveniently glossing over the fact that they had refused me even temporary shelter when I was homeless. They spoke of the nursery they could create in one of the upstairs bedrooms, the playroom for the twins, the home office Jason would need. We could move as soon as next month, Jason said, checking something on his phone. I've already given notice on our lease, actually. The timing is perfect. That detail caught my attention. You've already given notice? Before discussing this with me? Amanda waved dismissively. We were going to move somewhere anyway with the baby coming. This just makes more sense for everyone. After they left, promises to return with measurements and decorating ideas still hanging in the air, I sat alone in my kitchen, the magnitude of their presumption settling over me like a cold fog. They had made no mention of the flood, my months of homelessness, or their refusal to help. Instead, they had reimagined our relationship, casting themselves as the caring family members concerned about a lonely old man, rather than the opportunists they had proven themselves to be. 2 days later, they arrived unannounced, Jason's SUV pulling a small U-Haul trailer. We brought some things to start setting up, Amanda called cheerfully, directing Ethan to carry a small box labeled nursery decor. Jason began unloading larger items, including what appeared to be a crib and changing table. We figured we'd get the nursery organized first, since that's the most important with the baby coming. It's perfect for our nursery. I stood in the doorway, watching as they prepared to colonize the home I had spent months carefully restoring, the sanctuary Walter had provided when my own family had abandoned me. In that moment, seeing them assume control of my space without question or permission, something shifted within me. Without a word, I pulled out my phone and made a call that would change everything. Yes, today would be perfect, I said, into the phone, watching Amanda and Jason continue unloading the trailer, as soon as possible. I hung up and approached them, my decision crystallizing with each step. I think there's been a misunderstanding, I said calmly. Jason looked up from the box he was carrying. What's that? I never agreed to have you move in here. Amanda laughed nervously. Dad, we discussed this on Saturday. It makes perfect sense for everyone. No, I corrected, you proposed it. I never accepted. Jason set down the box with deliberate care. Braxton, be reasonable. This arrangement benefits everyone. You get family support, we get the space we need. We've already given notice on our apartment. That was your choice, made without consulting me. My voice remained steady. Your housing situation is not my responsibility. Amanda's expression shifted from confusion to hurt. Dad, what are you saying? Don't you want to be part of your grandchildren's lives? I would have loved that opportunity, I acknowledged. But you made it clear where I stood and your priorities when I was sleeping in my car, and you couldn't spare your guest room for even a night. Her face flushed. That was different. We had Jason's parents staying with us. The twins were colicky. It was a terrible time. And yet now that you need something from me, suddenly family is paramount. I gestured to the half-unloaded trailer. Please put everything back. You won't be living here. Jason stepped forward, his salesman's smile replaced by something colder. Let's discuss this rationally. You're getting older, Braxton. Living alone in a house this size isn't practical. I manage quite well. For now, he conceded. But what about in a year or two? Who will take care of you when you can't manage the stairs or remember to take your medications? There it was. The first hint of the strategy I had suspected was coming. Cast doubt on my competence, my ability to care for myself, lay groundwork for questions about my mental capacity. My health is excellent, I replied. My doctor can confirm that. Amanda moved to my side, taking my arm in a gesture of false concern. Dad, we're worried about you. You've been through a traumatic experience with the flood. It's affected your judgment. My judgment is perfectly sound, I assured her. Sound enough to recognize opportunism when I see it. Jason's facade of friendliness disappeared entirely. This isn't just about us needing space. This property is valuable, and you're living here alone when your family could benefit. Do you think that's fair to your grandchildren? Fair? The word hung in the air between us. Was it fair when you manipulated my insurance policy to remove flood coverage, while still charging me for it? His expression flickered briefly with shock before settling into calculated neutrality. I don't know what you're talking about. Or when you redirected my pension supplements into accounts I couldn't access? I continued. Walter Jennings explained everything before he died. He had evidence of what you've been doing. Amanda stared at her husband. Jason, what is he talking about? Your father is confused, Jason said sharply. This is exactly what I'm concerned about. These delusions, these paranoid accusations. I smiled for the first time since their arrival. That would be a convenient explanation, wouldn't it? The confused old man making baseless claims. Unfortunately for you, Walter's evidence is now in the hands of his attorney, who happens to specialize in elder financial abuse cases. The sound of tires on gravel announced new arrivals. A locksmith's van pulled up, followed by Eleanor's sensible sedan. "Ah, right on time," I said. "If you'll excuse me, I need to make some security upgrades to my home." "Dad, you're not thinking clearly," Amanda insisted, her voice rising with panic. "We're your family. Everything Jason did was to help manage your finances better." "By stealing from me?" I asked quietly. "By changing my insurance behind my back, so when disaster struck, I'd have nothing?" "I would never," Jason began. "Save it for the deposition," I interrupted. "Harold Blackman has already filed initial paperwork for a case against you. Financial exploitation of a senior citizen carries significant penalties in this state." Eleanor approached, assessing the situation quickly. "Everything all right, Braxton?" "Just fine. My daughter and son-in-law were just leaving." The locksmith waited awkwardly by his van until I motioned him forward. "I need all external locks changed immediately," I instructed. "And I'd like to discuss a security system installation as well." Jason's face darkened. "You're making a serious mistake, Braxton. We're only trying to help." "Your help has cost me nearly everything once already," I replied. "I won't give you the opportunity to finish the job." Amanda began to cry, the performance well executed but unconvincing given her previous actions. "Dad, please don't do this. Think about your grandchildren." "I am thinking about them," I said truthfully. "I'm thinking they deserve better examples of integrity and compassion than what you've demonstrated. Now, please leave, before I have Eleanor call the police to report trespassing." They departed in a storm of threats and accusations, Jason promising legal action, Amanda sobbing about family loyalty. I watched their SUV and the still-loaded trailer disappear down the driveway, feeling not the anguish I had expected, but a profound sense of liberation. Eleanor stayed while the locksmith worked, making us tea in the kitchen I had so carefully restored. "Are you really pursuing legal action?" she asked once we were alone. "Harold is investigating the possibilities," I confirmed. "Walter kept meticulous records of what he discovered. Whether we proceed depends on what else Harold finds." She nodded approvingly. "Walter would be pleased. He hated seeing vulnerability exploited." "I've spent my life trying to be a good father," I said, staring into my teacup. "Even after everything, part of me feels guilty for turning them away." "Boundaries aren't rejection," Eleanor reminded me gently. "They're self-preservation." Amanda made her choices long before today. Over the next week, the threats escalated. Jason left voicemails mentioning commitments they'd made based on my promise to let them move in. Amanda sent manipulative texts about the twins asking for their grandpa. Finally came the message I had been bracing for. "Dad, Jason thinks we need to have you evaluated by a geriatric specialist. Your paranoid accusations and erratic behavior are concerning. If you won't seek help voluntarily, we may need to petition for a competency hearing." I forwarded the message directly to Harold, who responded immediately. "Classic intimidation tactic. Don't worry. I've already gathered statements from your doctor, Eleanor, and several of your former colleagues attesting to your mental acuity. We're well prepared if they try this route." The next day, a formal letter arrived from Harold's office, addressed to Jason and Amanda, detailing the evidence Walter had collected regarding financial exploitation, with copies of the altered insurance documents and unauthorized account transfers. It proposed a settlement that would require full restitution but avoid criminal charges, provided they ceased all contact unless specifically invited. "Consider this a warning shot," Harold explained when I called. "If they're smart, they'll back off entirely. If not, we're prepared to escalate." 3 days of silence followed, during which I continued my work on the house, focusing particularly on the security upgrades. The new locks were reinforced, windows secured, and a state-of-the-art system installed with cameras covering all entrances. Then came a different kind of message from Amanda, the hostility, replaced by what sounded like genuine remorse. "Dad, I didn't know what Jason was doing with your finances. I'm so sorry about everything. Can we talk? Just me, not Jason." I showed the text to Eleanor during our now regular Sunday brunch. "What do you think? Is it sincere?" She considered carefully. "Possibly. Or it could be another manipulation. The question is, are you ready to find out which?" That question stayed with me as I worked in the garden that afternoon, planting bulbs that would bloom in spring, a season I might or might not share with my daughter and grandchildren. As I pressed each bulb into the soil, I found myself contemplating the possibility of renewal, of growth, emerging from dormancy and darkness. By evening, I had reached a decision. I texted Amanda back with clear terms. "I'll meet you at Eleanor's jewelry shop, Tuesday, at 2 p.m. Come alone." This is not an invitation to move in or to resume financial discussions. It's an opportunity for honest conversation, nothing more. Her immediate agreement, without qualifications or attempts to change the terms, gave me the first glimmer of hope that perhaps, just perhaps, there might be a path forward, albeit one with very different boundaries than before. As I prepared for bed that night, I noticed headlights sweeping across my bedroom wall. Looking out, I saw Jason's SUV parked at the end of my driveway, just sitting there with the engine running. After 5 minutes, it pulled away. I immediately activated the security system's highest alert setting and called Harold. "Document everything," he advised. "If they're planning something, we want a record." The next morning, I found footprints in the soft earth beneath several windows, and what appeared to be tool marks on the back door frame. Someone had been testing my defenses. When I called Eleanor to confirm our meeting for Tuesday, I mentioned these concerning developments. "You should stay with me tonight," she offered. "I don't like the sound of this." "Thank you, but no," I replied. "I won't be driven from my home by intimidation. Besides, the security system would alert the police immediately if anyone tried to enter." "Just be careful," she cautioned. "People can become desperate when their plans are thwarted." That night, my vigilance was rewarded. At just after midnight, the security system's alert blared through the house as motion sensors detected someone on the back porch. The cameras showed Jason attempting to pick the new lock, his face partially obscured by a hooded sweatshirt but still recognizable. I called 911 immediately, reporting a break-in attempt in progress. By the time police arrived, Jason had fled, but the security footage provided clear evidence of his intentions. I filed a police report and immediately sent the video to Harold, who promised to add it to our growing case file. "This changes everything," Harold said grimly. "Breaking and entering attempts move us beyond civil claims into criminal territory. I'll contact the prosecutor's office in the morning." As I ended the call, another text from Amanda arrived. "Dad, please call me urgently. Jason didn't come home tonight. I'm worried." I didn't respond. Whatever game they were playing, I would no longer be a willing participant. The boundaries I had established would remain firm, protected now not just by new locks and security systems, but by my own resolve to value myself as much as I had once valued them. The meeting with Amanda never happened. Instead, Tuesday brought 2 police officers to her door with a warrant for Jason's arrest on charges of attempted breaking and entering, along with preliminary charges of elder financial abuse. According to Eleanor, who heard from her friend at the police station, Amanda had been shocked into silence as they explained the security footage and financial evidence. Jason was released on bail, but required to wear an ankle monitor and stay at least 500 feet from my property. Their attorney reached out to Harold immediately, suddenly eager to discuss the settlement offer they had previously ignored. "They're running scared now," Harold reported. "The criminal charges have opened them up to much more serious consequences than just financial restitution. They want to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" I asked cautiously. "Full financial restitution, plus covering our legal fees. In exchange, you would agree not to pursue additional civil claims and to speak to the prosecutor about leniency regarding the criminal charges." I considered this carefully. "And contact with the grandchildren?" Harold's voice softened. "That would be a separate negotiation. Legally, they can't prevent you from seeking grandparent visitation rights, especially given your previous relationship with the children. But proceeding amicably would be in everyone's best interest." The negotiation process took 6 weeks, during which I continued my work on the house, finding solace in the tangible progress of restoration. The garden was now prepared for winter, the exterior fully weatherproofed, and the interior spaces increasingly reflecting my own taste while honoring Walter's vision. Eleanor became a frequent visitor, our friendship deepening, as we discovered shared interests beyond our connection through Walter. Her knowledge of antiques proved invaluable as I furnished the house, and her practical nature complemented my more methodical approach. "You've done wonders with this place," she commented one evening as we enjoyed coffee in the now completed library. "It's become a true home." "Thanks to Walter," I acknowledged. "Walter provided the house," she corrected, "but you've created the home. There's a difference." By early December, the legal matters were resolved. Jason agreed to full restitution, including the flood insurance payout I should have received, plus an additional sum for the emotional distress and temporary homelessness I'd experienced. In total, the settlement came to just over $300,000, a sum that ensured I would never face financial insecurity again. In exchange, I agreed to make a statement to the prosecutor recommending probation rather than jail time for the breaking and entering attempt. Jason would still have a criminal record, but would avoid incarceration as long as he adhered to strict conditions, including financial management classes and community service. The most difficult negotiations involved future family relationships. Amanda had finally begun to recognize the severity of her betrayal, though whether from genuine remorse or simply the shock of consequences remained unclear. "I didn't know about the financial manipulation," she insisted during our first supervised meeting at Harold's office. "I swear, Dad, I thought Jason was just helping organize your retirement funds." "And the flood insurance?" I asked. "The refusal to help when I was homeless?" She looked down, unable to meet my eyes. I was selfish. The twins were overwhelming. Jason's career was taking off, and I didn't want to deal with one more thing. I told myself you'd be fine, that someone else would help you. "Someone did," I said quietly. "Just not my daughter." The tears that filled her eyes seemed genuine, but I had been fooled before. "Can you ever forgive me?" she whispered. "Forgiveness isn't the issue," I explained carefully. "Trust is, and trust requires both time and evidence of change." We established a structured visitation schedule for the grandchildren, beginning with monthly supervised visits at neutral locations. Jason would not be present for these initially, a condition he accepted with surprising grace, perhaps understanding the depth of the damage he had caused. Christmas approached, bringing with it my first visit with the twins since the confrontation. Eleanor offered to host at her home, creating a warm, neutral space for this tentative reunion. "Grandpa," Emma called when she saw me, rushing forward with the uncomplicated joy of a child. Ethan followed more cautiously, studying me with serious eyes that reminded me painfully of Amanda at that age. "I brought something special," I told them, presenting each with a handcrafted wooden puzzle box I had made in my new workshop. Inside Emma's was a delicate silver bracelet with a heart charm, and in Ethan's, a magnifying glass with a compass built into the handle. "Did you make these?" Ethan asked, examining the puzzle box with fascination. "I did," I confirmed. "Would you like to learn how they work?" The afternoon passed in a blur of childish laughter and simple pleasures. Amanda remained respectfully in the background, allowing me space to reconnect with the children without interference. When it was time to leave, Emma hugged me tightly. "Can we come see your big house next time?" she asked. I glanced at Amanda, who nodded slightly, acknowledging the boundaries I had established. "Maybe soon," I told Emma. "Once everything is ready." As winter deepened, I continued making progress both on the house and on rebuilding selective family relationships. Amanda began therapy, working to understand her role in what had happened and how to make genuine amends. The twins visited more regularly, now comfortable in Eleanor's home, which had become our meeting place. In late February, Amanda called with news. "The baby came early," she said, her voice tired but happy. "A little girl. We named her Sarah, after Mom." The gesture touched me unexpectedly. "Sarah," I repeated, hearing my late wife's name spoken in connection to new life. "Would you like to meet her?" Amanda asked hesitantly. "I'm still in the hospital, but they're releasing us tomorrow." The hospital visit was brief but meaningful. Holding tiny Sarah, with her perfect fingers and solemn gaze, I felt the first genuine stirring of forgiveness, taking root alongside the caution experience had taught me. "She's beautiful," I told Amanda sincerely. "Dad," she said, watching me with her daughter, "I want to do better this time. With Sarah, with the twins, and with you. I know words aren't enough, but I'm trying to show you through actions." "That's all any of us can do," I acknowledged. "Take actions that align with our values, day by day." Spring brought new beginnings in more ways than one. The garden, Walter and I had planned, burst into glorious color. The architectural details of the house gleamed with fresh paint, and the interior was now fully furnished, each room a blend of historical accuracy and personal comfort. Eleanor and I had grown increasingly close, our friendship evolving naturally into something deeper neither of us had anticipated. At 70 and 67 respectively, we approached romance with the wisdom of experience, valuing companionship and shared values above all else. "Walter would approve," she said one evening as we sat on the porch swing, watching fireflies emerge in the twilight. "He always said you were one of the good ones." Amanda and the children visited the house for the first time on Easter Sunday. I had prepared carefully, child-proofing areas for the twins, while ensuring they had spaces to explore safely. Baby Sarah, now 2 months old, slept peacefully in the portable bassinet Amanda brought. "This place is amazing, Dad," Amanda said, taking in the results of my months of restoration work. You've created something really special here. It's been healing, I admitted. Taking something broken and making it whole again. She nodded, understanding the metaphor extended beyond the house. I hope we can do the same with our relationship, eventually. We're making progress, I acknowledged. But it will take time and consistent effort from both of us. As the children explored the garden, Amanda approached with an envelope. I wanted to show you this, she said, handing it to me. Inside was a lease agreement for a modest apartment. Just Amanda and the children listed as tenants. Jason and I are separating, she explained quietly. After everything came out, I realized there were other deceptions I had been ignoring. He's not the man I thought I married. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it despite everything. Don't be, she replied with surprising strength. It's better for the children to see me standing on my own than accepting behavior that undermines our family's values. I've applied for teaching positions, to use my education degree finally. It's time I supported myself, instead of expecting others to provide for me. The pride I felt in that moment was complex but genuine. You'll be an excellent teacher, I told her. It runs in the family. By summer, our new family dynamics had stabilized into something healthier, if very different from before. Amanda was teaching summer school and preparing for a full-time position in the fall. The twins spent one weekend a month with me, sometimes joined by Eleanor, who had become a beloved figure in their lives. Jason had completed his financial restitution and was adhering to his probation requirements. While our relationship would never be close, we maintained civil communication regarding the children, who still saw their father regularly. The Victorian house had been fully restored, its grandeur now matched by its warmth as a true home. Walter's vision had been realized, though perhaps in ways he hadn't anticipated. The Historical Society representatives who visited occasionally marveled at the authentic restoration, unaware of the parallel restoration of human relationships that had occurred within its walls. On the one-year anniversary of the flood that had taken my former home, I hosted a gathering for the neighbors and friends who had become my chosen family. Eleanor, now officially my partner, helped organize a donation drive for current flood victims in another state. Amanda brought the children and contributed her organizational skills to the effort. As twilight fell, I stood on the porch of the house that had become both my sanctuary and my legacy, watching the community that had reformed around me. Eleanor joined me, slipping her hand into mine. "Penny for your thoughts," she said softly. "I was just thinking about how sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover what really matters," I replied. A year ago, I was sleeping in my car, abandoned by my only child, with nothing but a few clothes to my name. And now? I gestured toward the garden where Amanda sat with baby Sarah on her lap, watching the twins play with some of the neighborhood children. Now, I have a home that can't be taken from me, a partner I trust completely, and a relationship with my daughter that, while still healing, is based on truth rather than obligation. Plus those excellent grandchildren, Eleanor added with a smile. Plus those, I agreed. I've changed too. I'm not the same man who lost his house in that flood. No, she confirmed. You're stronger. You've learned to value yourself as much as you value others. That's a powerful lesson, at any age. As the evening progressed, I found myself sharing the story of the past year with those gathered, not as a tale of victimhood, but as one of resilience and renewal. When I finished, one of my former students, now a middle-aged man with children of his own, asked a question that resonated deeply. After everything that happened, how did you find the strength to rebuild, not just your home, but your life? I considered this carefully before answering. I think we often mistake comfort for security, and blood ties for true family bonds. The flood washed away my illusions, along with my possessions. It showed me who would stand by me when I had nothing to offer but myself, and who saw me only as a resource to be used. That clarity, painful as it was, became the foundation for building something more authentic and enduring. Later, as the guests departed and I began tidying up, I found Amanda in the library, looking at a photo of her mother I kept on the desk. "Mom would be proud of you," she said quietly, "for standing your ground, for rebuilding, for everything. She'd be proud of you too," I told her, "for finding the courage to start over, to become self-sufficient, to prioritize your integrity over comfort." "I'm still working on it," Amanda admitted. "Some days are harder than others." "That's true for all of us," I assured her. "The important thing is that we keep trying to align our actions with our values, day by day. That's how we honor those we've lost, and those who helped us when we needed it most." As I locked the doors of my beautiful home that night, secure in the knowledge that I had created both a physical sanctuary and emotional boundaries that protected what I valued most. I felt profound gratitude for the journey that had brought me here. From desperation to redemption, from betrayal to carefully rebuilt trust, from homelessness to a home filled with authentic connections. The greatest lesson wasn't about property or possessions, but about recognizing your own worth and requiring others to honor it. Sometimes you have to lose everything to gain the wisdom to rebuild something far more valuable than what was lost. Have you ever had to start over completely in your life? What lessons did you learn from having to rebuild? Please share your experiences in the comments below. If you found value in my story, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that sometimes our greatest challenges lead to unexpected blessings. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength and wisdom on your own journey of renewal.